I want you to look at a map of the Middle East, specifically that tiny sliver of blue water between the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. That is the Strait of Hormuz. It is only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, yet it is arguably the most sensitive geographic coordinate on the planet. Every single day, 1/5 of the world's total oil consumption and 1/4 of its liquefied natural gas pass through this corridor. For decades, the question has haunted military planners in Washington, Beijing, and London. Can the United States or any other superpower truly control or blockade this water? Today, we are going to look past the political headlines and dive into the cold, hard reality of naval warfare. We will explore exactly why the Strait of Hormuz has become an impossible theater for modern navies, and why Iran, despite being a middle-tier military power, currently holds the ultimate leverage over the global economy. If you want to understand the strategic chessboard that determines your energy prices, subscribe now. This is a deep dive into the architecture of maritime denial. To understand why controlling the strait is nearly impossible, we have to start with the geometry of the battlefield. While the strait is 21 miles wide, the actual shipping lanes used by massive tankers are only 2 miles wide in each direction. These lanes are surrounded by shallow, rocky waters. For a U.S. Navy carrier strike group, this is a nightmare. A billion-dollar destroyer or a $13 billion aircraft carrier is designed for the open ocean, where it has space to maneuver and detect threats from hundreds of miles away. Inside the strait, that same ship is trapped in a narrow channel surrounded by an Iranian coastline that has been turned into a fortress. In military terms, this isn't a highway, it's a kill zone. Let's address the first big question. Can the U.S. Navy blockade the Strait of Hormuz? Technically, with the sheer weight of the Fifth Fleet, the U.S. could stop ships from entering. But a blockade is an act of war, and in this specific geography, the defender has every advantage. Maintaining a blockade requires ships to remain in relatively fixed positions. In the Strait of Hormuz, a stationary ship is a dead ship. Iran has spent 40 years building a doctrine called A2AD, anti-access and area denial. Their goal isn't to win a fair fight, it's to make the cost of staying in the strait so high that the US is forced to leave. Announcement number 1, the coastal missile wall. Along the northern coast of the strait, Iran has carved massive tunnel networks into the mountains. These are missile cities. They house thousands of anti-ship cruise missiles like the Noor, the Qadr, and the long-range Abu Mahdi. These missiles are truck-mounted and mobile. They can emerge from a hidden cave, fire, and disappear back into the mountain in minutes. Because of this, the US cannot simply bomb Iran's missile threat away. You can destroy a hangar, but you cannot destroy a mountain. This means any fleet attempting to control the strait is constantly operating under the shadow of thousands of hidden, land-based missiles that can strike from anywhere at any time. Announcement number 2, the invisible fleet and the mine trap. As we have discussed before, the real danger in the strait isn't what you see on the surface, it's what's underneath. Iran operates a fleet of Ghadir-class midget submarines. These are only 29 meters long. In the shallow, noisy, and warm waters of the strait, these subs are nearly impossible to detect with sonar. They can sit silently on the seabed and wait for a carrier to pass overhead. But even more dangerous than the submarines are the mines. Iran possesses one of the world's largest and most sophisticated naval mine inventories. They have smart mines that can distinguish between a small fishing boat and a massive military hull. If Iran drops just 100 mines into the shipping lanes, the entire strait effectively closes. No insurance company will cover a tanker, and no captain will risk his ship. Clearing those mines while being fired upon by coastal missiles is an operational task that even the world's most powerful navy cannot guarantee. Announcement number 3, swarm theory and asymmetric leverage. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Navy doesn't use big ships. They use thousands of high-speed, missile-armed speedboats. In a conflict, they don't send one boat. They send a swarm of 50 or 100. Modern defense systems like the Aegis are incredibly advanced, but they have a limit. They can only track and engage a certain number of targets at once. If a swarm of boats attacks from 360 degrees, while drones are diving from above and missiles are firing from the coast, the math of survival becomes impossible for a surface ship. Iran isn't trying to sink the entire US Navy. They only need to sink 1 or 2 high-profile ships to make the political and economic cost of the war unbearable for Washington. Now, let's look at the geopolitical masterstroke. Iran has recently completed a massive pipeline project to the port of Jask, which lies outside the Strait of Hormuz. This is a game changer. Historically, if Iran closed the strait, they would also choke their own economy. But now, they can close the strait to their enemies while still exporting their own oil from a port that bypasses the choke point. This gives Tehran the off switch for the world's energy supply without committing economic suicide. It is a strategic checkmate that forces the world to play by Iran's rules. So where does this leave the United States? For years, the US has maintained a presence in the Gulf to ensure the freedom of navigation. But as Iran's technology has improved, that presence has shifted from control to deterrence. The US can deter a small attack, but it cannot stop a total closure of the strait without a massive, full-scale war that would involve invading the Iranian mainland, a task we already know is nearly impossible. The reality of the Strait of Hormuz is that geography has defeated technology. The most advanced navy in history is being held at bay by sidetracked mountains, snot-nosed speedboats, and silent midget submarines. This is the new reality of 21st century warfare. The power to destroy a country is not the same as the power to control a waterway. I want to know what you think. Is the age of the giant aircraft carrier over in places like the Strait of Hormuz? Can the US develop a counter-swarm technology that works, or has Iran permanently won this geographic lottery? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one of them. If this analysis gave you a new perspective, share it with someone who still thinks military power is just about who has the biggest ships. This is Daily Brief. We track the real power moves so you can stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one.